Just before sunrise, when the land is quiet and the wind barely moves the grass, the ground begins to tremble. At first, it feels like distant thunder, the kind farmers in rural America have learned to respect. But this sound doesn't come from the sky. It rises from beneath the soil, from hooves, tusks, and thousands of bodies moving as one unstoppable force. Somewhere beyond the fence line, dark shapes emerge. Not deer, not cattle, wild boars. And not just a few, hundreds, sometimes thousands, advancing toward fields that took an entire year to grow. This is not a rare incident. This is not an isolated problem. This is a silent war playing out every single night across farms, ranches, and grasslands. A war where crops vanish overnight. Fences are shredded like paper, and livelihoods are destroyed before morning coffee is poured. Farmers wake up to chaos. Acres turn into craters, irrigation lines ripped apart, and tracks so deep they look like the land itself is bleeding. The boars don't attack out of malice. They attack to survive. Intelligent, adaptable, relentless, they have learned every weakness in human defenses. They move under cover of darkness, communicate through grunts and signals, and scatter the moment danger appears, only to regroup minutes later. Traditional scare tactics fail. Barriers fail. Even time fails. Because while farmers sleep, the invasion begins. What makes this conflict tragic is that neither side can truly win. Farmers are pushed to desperation, watching years of hard work disappear in a single night. Wars multiply faster than anyone imagined, spreading across states, counties, and borders, turning fertile land into battlegrounds. Each attempt to control them seems to create new problems, new risks, and deeper consequences. Authorities debate solutions. Scientists warn of ecological collapse. Hunters are called in. Traps are built. Technology is deployed. Yet the numbers keep rising. Millions of wild boars now roam the countryside, and every one of them is hungry. This is not just a story about animals and agriculture. It is a story about survival, adaptation, and an endless struggle between human planning and nature's raw force. A conflict with no clear beginning, no easy solution, and no guarantee it will ever truly end. Because as long as crops grow, boars will come. To understand how this conflict spiraled out of control, you have to go back decades, long before farmers began calling it crisis. Wild boars were never meant to dominate these landscapes. Some were introduced intentionally for hunting. Others escaped from private farms. Over time, different species mixed, adapted, and evolved into something far more dangerous than anyone predicted. Stronger bodies, sharper instincts, explosive reproduction. What emerged wasn't just an invasive animal, but a biological force perfectly engineered to survive alongside humans. A single female can give birth to 2 litters a year, sometimes more. Each litter can produce up to a dozen piglets. Do the math. Within months, a manageable problem becomes an uncontrollable population surge. And unlike other wild boars don't stay deep in forests. They move where food is richest. Cornfields, wheat fields, rice paddies, vegetable farms. Anywhere humans invest time, water, and money, boars follow. Farmers tried everything. Fences were reinforced with steel. Electric barriers were installed. Noise cannons blasted through the night. Motion lights flashed like warning beacons. For a while, some of it worked. Then the boars adapted. They learned patterns. They waited. They dug underneath. They simply walked through when fear no longer mattered. Intelligence became their greatest weapon. As damage increased, desperation set in. Insurance couldn't keep up. Government compensation lagged behind reality. One bad season could bankrupt a family that had worked the same land for generations. For many farmers, this wasn't just about crops. It was about identity, legacy, and survival. Watching a field destroyed overnight felt like watching years of life erased in silence. Communities began organizing. Night patrols formed. Farmers shared radio channels, trail camera footage, and damage maps. Some nights, dozens of trucks lined dirt roads, headlights off, waiting. But even coordinated efforts struggled. Kill a few boars and the rest vanished. Miss a night and the damage doubles. Every action seemed to push the problem somewhere else. The ecological impact made things worse. Wild boars don't just eat crops. They uproot native plants, destroy bird nests, contaminate water sources, and outcompete local wildlife. Forest floors are torn apart. Wetlands collapse. The land itself begins to change. Scientists warn that unchecked populations could permanently alter ecosystems. But warnings don't stop hooves. Then came the turning point. Farmers realized brute force alone wasn't working. Shooting solved symptoms, not causes. Trapping small groups only made the survivors smarter. The problem demanded patience, strategy, and something farmers aren't usually taught to rely on: waiting. Slowly, a new approach emerged. Not loud, not violent, silent, calculated. Built on understanding how boars think rather than how fast they run. The idea sounded almost foolish at first. Instead of chasing the enemy, invite it in. Let it feel safe. Let it trust. It went against instinct, against anger, against fear. But those who tried it noticed something shocking. The land began to recover. Damage slowed. Patterns changed. For the first time, the balance shifted. Not because humans became stronger, but because they became smarter. And yet, even the solution carried weighty consequences. Ethical questions, legal boundaries, risks if done wrong. One mistake could undo months of progress. This wasn't a miracle fix. It was a gamble. Because when you face millions of wild boars, every decision matters. And the smallest mistake can bring the invasion back overnight. What most people never see is the pressure that comes after a solution begins to work. Success brings attention. Attention brings scrutiny. And scrutiny brings rules, limits, and responsibility. When farmers started using smarter containment and population control methods, government stepped in not to stop the problem, but to regulate it. Permits were required. Reporting became mandatory. Every action had to be documented. Because this was no longer just a farm issue. It was a national ecological crisis. The new strategy relied on understanding herd behavior at a deep level. Wild boars don't move randomly. They follow leaders. They test environments. They communicate danger through sound, scent, and absence. Farmers learned that removing one or two animals too early was worse than doing nothing at all. It fractured the herd, scattered survivors, and made future control almost impossible. The key was patience, waiting until the entire group trusted a location before acting. This demanded discipline that few could maintain. Weeks of damage had to be tolerated. Crops were sacrificed on purpose. Cameras watched silently as herds came and went night after night. Every instinct screamed to act, but restraint became the strongest weapon. When the moment finally came, the results were undeniable. Entire groups were removed at once, quietly, without triggering fear responses in neighboring herds. But this wasn't just about numbers. It changed how farmers viewed their role. They were no longer reacting. They were managing, thinking long-term, coordinating with neighbors instead of competing, sharing data instead of hiding losses. A network formed, stronger than any single fence or rifle. The land responded first. Fields once destroyed began to stabilize. Seedlings survived the night. Irrigation lines stayed intact. Native animals returned slowly, cautiously, as if testing whether it was safe again. Birds nested where the soil was no longer torn apart. Streams ran clearer, without contamination. Recovery didn't happen overnight, but for the first time, it happened at all. Still, the conflict never truly ends. Wild boars are relentless. Their intelligence ensures that new generations will test boundaries again. Climate change pushes them into new territories. Urban expansion creates fresh food sources. Every year, the front line shifts. Farmers know this. No one believes the problem is solved. Only controlled for now, and control comes at a cost. Time, money, emotional endurance. Living with the knowledge that one missed detail, one rushed decision, can undo everything. This is why many farmers say the fight isn't against animals. It's against impatience, against short-term thinking, against the belief that force alone can restore balance. In the end, this tragic conflict reveals something deeper. Humans created the conditions for invasion. Humans disrupted ecosystems. And now, humans are forced to adapt, not by dominating nature, but by understanding it. The struggle between wild boars and farmers isn't just about crops or land. It's a warning, a lesson written into soil and scars. Because when nature pushes back, it doesn't do so with emotion, only with numbers and memory. And those who survive are the ones who learn to think several steps ahead.